The motion.
Thank you very much. I, yet again, am very pleased to be here in your chairpersonship in this debate. I beg to move that this House has considered funding of the Upper Don Trail. It is a pleasure, obviously, to serve under your chairpersonship, Mrs Cummings, and I'm delighted to have secured this debate today to sing the praises of the Upper Don Trail and the trust of volunteers who worked so hard to bring out the best in this natural corridor through the north of Sheffield. The Upper Don Trail is a natural trail that runs 6 miles along the route of the River Don from the city centre out to Stocksbridge. It takes in a combination of modern developments, historic woodland and industrial sites along its passage. In my constituency, it passes many noticeable sites such as Hillsborough College, the Mondelez Sweet Factory, the Fletcher's Bakery, Sheffield Wednesday Football Club and the Berets Factory, home to the world famous pork sandwich shop, much loved by the people of Sheffield. In parts, the route meets up with the National Cycle Network, Route 627 of the Trans-Pennine Trail. To follow the route is to follow Sheffield's industrial past, with former steelworks and small manufacturing factories running alongside much of the route. It is also the story of Sheffield's ongoing redevelopment and future potential. Many of the former industrial sites are going through the process of development. Currently, cycling from the city centre to the Peak District through Hillsborough, Stocksbridge and Outerbridge is a mixed bag of infrastructure. The Trust's ambition is to raise the standard across the trail to make sure it is accessible, flat, off-road and follows the course of the River Don. In many places along the trail, this ambition has worked well, with many developers and councillors ensuring that where sites are developed, the trail is included in the scheme. Due to the hard work of the Trust, they completed improvement works on 8 kilometres of the trail and have secured funding for 9.3 kilometres. There remains only 2.5 kilometres of the trail that requires a proposal for funding. While both Sheffield and Barnsley councils are incredibly supportive of the scheme, their hands are tied by funding limitations and government requirements for active travel schemes. The signs of development can be seen as the route leaves Stocksbridge and heads towards the city centre. Indeed, just outside my constituency, the route through Beelywood is paved, opening a safe and popular route for walkers and cyclists away from the busy Middlewood Road North. The trail then runs along roads for a stretch before rejoining historic woodland at Herries Road Railway Viaduct, resting place to fallen soldiers from the First and Second World Wars. Despite losing its Commonwealth War Graves Commission status, the cemetery is maintained by a team of passionate volunteers who work tirelessly to ensure the peace and natural charm is open to as many people as possible. As the trail enters my constituency, the disconnect becomes apparent, with users of the route having to walk alongside busy roads for a long period of time, and cyclists left with little choice but to continue along the busy dual carriageway into the city centre. I was pleased, therefore, to hear of investment by Sustrans and matched by Sheffield City Council to construct a fully accessible route in my constituency between Herries Road and Ward's End Cemetery. However, I understand this exciting project has been put on hold due to engineering difficulties. The Trust remains committed to enhancing this portion of the trail, and I was pleased to join them and other local groups on a work day in September to improve the existing footpath. The Trust and many residents were disappointed when the Planning Committee decided not to include an active travel scheme to connect the trail by improving the existing on-road cycle route. As a former councillor, I know that often on planning committees you must vote with the legislation. Therefore, I would encourage the Minister to liaise with the Minister for Housing to ensure that planning officers and committees have more scope to ensure active travel requirements are a condition of approving large developments. The Upper Don Trail Trust's emphasis on active travel and outdoor leisure activities is clear to see. The trail allows for a vast range of activities ranging from rambling to rock climbing and cycling to kayaking. The Trust works closely with local councils and other organisations to improve the trail's accessibility and prominence. Sheffield's 7 hills and busy city roads may naturally put many people off cycling. After the Tour de France came to Sheffield, many local people took up cycling. The Upper Don Trail is benefited by its mostly flat route. However, the disconnected portions of the trail means it cannot yet claim to be a completely off-road network. Active travel delivers immense benefits in a whole range of ways. The Trust's ambition is for people to use the trail on their daily commute just as much as they would for leisure. Giving people the opportunity to travel to work, school or college in a more active way has been proven to do wonders for their physical and mental well-being. The NHS recommends that adults complete 150 minutes of physical activity a week. With active travel, this can be achieved through a 15-minute commute each way 5 days a week. The Trust have identified that many are eager to cycle on their commute, but find the prospect of mixing with cars on busy roads daunting. This is reflected across the country, with research showing that 62% of adults feel that it is too dangerous for them to cycle on the roads near them. The Upper Don Trails Trust plans would allow cyclists in Sheffield to commute through tranquil scenery surrounded by woodland rather than through loud and busy junctions. And as we all know, active travel is a key tool in our fight against climate change. By encouraging people to commute via carbon-free methods wherever possible, we can help to care for our planet and at the same time improving air quality in the local area. Air quality is an ongoing issue in Sheffield, as it is in many towns and cities across the UK. Along with most other cities in England, Sheffield has reported levels of harmful nitrogen dioxide in some areas. These toxic fumes can cause respiratory problems, including asthma, and cause damage to the respiratory tract. Long-term exposure has also been linked to chronic lung disease. There is therefore a strong public health argument for schemes like this which allow people to run, walk and cycle in woodland away from the traffic. This would also help to improve the air quality in our urban city centres by encouraging more people to switch to carbon-free travel on their commutes, thereby reducing cars on the road. The Trust also does excellent work to ensure that activities on the trail are accessible to everyone. For example, the Trust's ambition is to have more accessible footpaths leading down to the Don River. This would provide better access to the river for wheelchair users and people with other disabilities so that they can take part in activities on the river, such as canoeing. An army of local volunteers work tirelessly to help to keep the trail going. This includes Friends of the Porter Valley, which is a brilliant group who conserve the Porter and Mayfield valleys a short distance away from the Upper Don Trail. Volunteers from this group often come over to help renovate and maintain the trail, and I want to place on record my thanks for their invaluable work. But the reality is that the Trust's ambitious plans need the proper funding to unlock the true potential of the Upper Don Trail. Fundraising often forms the bedrock for the funding of projects like this. For example, Friends of the Porter Valley have managed to raise over £250,000 to make improvements to the mill pond at Forge Dam. But sadly, many parts of my constituency close to the Upper Don Trail have high levels of poverty and deprivation. Hence, it is difficult for the Trust to fundraise enough money in these areas to fulfil their vision. This problem risks creating a postcode lottery for the enjoyment of nature. Everyone, regardless of background, should have the right to access the natural woodland close to them. But disparities between different areas mean that those less affluent could be left behind. If the Minister is serious about levelling up, this really is a stark inequality which must be addressed through government funding. Unfortunately, though, national funding has not been readily forthcoming for the Trust. A focus on the on-road cycle routes by the Department for Transport means that off-road routes such as the Upper Don Trail have struggled to find funding. As is imminently clear, the Upper Don Trail is so much more than just a cycle path. It is a way to preserve the beautiful woodland scenery in South Yorkshire and ensure that people from all different backgrounds are able to come and enjoy it. It provides opportunities for fishing, swimming, running, climbing, horse riding, mental well-being and the enjoyment of nature. These trails often become much-loved community resources which inspire a huge amount of local support for maintenance, litter picking, organised walks and runs. It would be impossible to quantify the immense societal value that the trail can bring. I am in no doubt that investment into it would be money well spent. Therefore, I want to urge the Minister to look at what support her department can offer to give this project a boost. DEFRA's mission, as set out on its website, is to restore and enhance the environment for the next generation, leaving it in a better state than when we found it. If there is one project where the Minister can make good on those words, the Upper Don Trail is it. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered funding for the Upper Don Trail. Minister.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I think it's the first time, actually, so lovely to see you in your chair. And obviously, I'd like to start as well by thanking the Honourable Member for Sheffield Brightside and Hillsborough for sharing details of the work taking place in her constituency on the Upper Don Trail that's connecting people from Sheffield right out there to the Peak District. And it does sound like it's a wonderful insight into not just getting out into the countryside, but the history, the industrial history, and all of those other things that a trail that starts within a city or a town can also do. I'd really particularly like to commend the Upper Don Trail Trust for their hard work in securing that public and private funding to make the project happen, and the effort of all those volunteers that have been flagged by the Honourable Member, who have played such a big role on this trail, as they do on many of the trails around the country, on what was previously, I think, an underused trail. And I know that both she and the Conservative MP for Sheffield is also supporting the trail. And obviously, as we've heard, the trail hosts all kinds of opportunities for people and visitors to not just walk, but cycle, to get there, to kayak. I think climbers, anglers, riders, you name it. I think they're doing it. And away, in most cases, from traffic. And it doesn't really matter what age one is either. The trail can be used. And so I very much welcome the ambitions of the Upper Don Trail and recognise that its objectives align completely with the government's objectives, which in fact has been highlighted. And as set out in the 25-year Environment Plan, we are absolutely committed to connecting more people from all backgrounds with the natural environment, in particular for their health and well-being, and supporting people to access and enjoy and understand the great outdoors. And I think obviously the pandemic, the lockdown highlighted this even more than ever, didn't it? With 42% of people agreeing that they increased their time spent outdoors during the pandemic. And particularly because the trail goes along the river for some time, trails along canals and riverways were especially popular, with so many people using the walkways along them. And I was particularly delighted as the Nature Recovery Minister, because what it's doing is helping to connect more people with nature, and if they're connecting with it, they'll love it, and they'll understand why we need to look after it. So there's all kinds of spin-offs. Also, in terms of the obesity strategy, which this government is tackling, helping everyone to lead healthier lives. And also there's a big mental health spin-off. And we're actually using access to some of these trails in our green social prescribing agenda, prescribing walks and getting outside. And all of these ambitions are increased by access to trails such as the Don Trail. And you call it the Upper Don Trail. Madam Chair. And also active travel was referred to. This is another government priority, and similarly links to clean air, away from traffic and so forth. The air is cleaner, so cycling and walking is obviously more beneficial. I did want to particularly draw attention, Madam Chair, to what has been available across government to help people access nature, which I referred to just now. We've had the £18 million Green Recovery Challenge Fund, which we launched during the lockdown. And the aim of that was to kickstart a whole lot of nature-based projects across England. And one of the main aims was to connect people with nature. And it's estimated that 23,000 people have engaged to date through projects funded by the Green Recovery Challenge Fund. And a further 3 million people have engaged with them indirectly online through media events linking to them, which I think is extremely positive. And the Farming in Protected Landscapes programme was launched in June just last year to help farmers in national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty to make improvements to the natural environment. And there was a big element in there to improve public access on their land. And that includes projects to deliver infrastructure, pathways and so forth, but clearer and simpler signage, dedicated cycling access, better disabled access and walking routes to connect landscapes. So, for example, in the uplands in White Peak, in the Peak District National Park, the beef and sheep farmer there received funding to create a new permissive path to give walkers the opportunity to experience a variety of habitats within his land. We're also committed to ensuring that the public have good access to footpaths. And on Saturday, we published our response to the Glover Landscape Review that I'm sure the Honourable Member is aware of. And we announced a new charity is being formed as a single strategic body for all national trails. Something I think she will be particularly interested in. And the aim of that is to share knowledge and experience between the trails and to improve efficiency and effectiveness, develop bids for activities across the wider network and fundraise to provide more resources to enhance the network. So here could be some opportunities. And also, the experience sharing is so important because every trail is different and managed in a different way, and the bodies running them experience different problems. So to share the experience, I personally believe will be helpful. And almost 2,000 miles of national trails exist in England, and we're also creating new trails all the time, and we are connecting up all the bits around the coast to form the final completed England coastal path. And when that is completed, that will be 2,700 miles, and that will be the longest waymarked and maintained coastal walking route in the world. So that's something to be really proud of. Might give us something to do in our spare time, Madam Chair, or maybe walk some bits of it in the recesses. And we're also developing a new national trail across North England, between St Bees and Cumbria and Robin Hood's Bay in North Yorkshire. That will link up lots of bits of pathways already existing, but complete the bits in between. So the Upper Don Trail provides a really great example of how projects can do all the things that we're talking about: restore nature, engage the local community, and increase access to nature. And again, I absolutely commend everyone that's been so involved in it. Now, the bit that she's wanting to hear about is, obviously, it's not possible for me to commit to further funding at this stage for those small portions left to complete. There are two missing links, I believe, main missing links, but my officials would definitely be happy to explore options, and in particular where DEFRA might be involved, because we don't have all the funding levers in DEFRA. There are other pots, which she's aware of, but maybe in terms of working to unlock those other pots, which I think is a constructive way of working and how we should all be working when we're looking at grants for these things. And so I would particularly like to encourage the Upper Don Trail Trust to liaise via Sheffield City Council with the Sustrans and their cycle network upgrade proposals, because I fully appreciate how important it is to get rid of those sections on the road. Because personally, even in lockdown, I cycled with my own children, and we cycled on the roads more than we'd ever done before, and that was fine. But when all the traffic got back again, my children, who were quite grown up, didn't want to cycle on the roads anymore. You know, they wanted just to use the path. So I do understand that. I would also say, you know, so work with those, the council, Sustrans, and look on that cycle network, the upgrade proposals, but particularly going to the Department of Transport, who really hold the pen on the National Cycle Network. And we've got a new cycle and walking minister who's very keen to do joint work across departments, and I'm keen to do that myself. So I would urge others, and maybe, you know, with the Conservative MP in Sheffield, to get together. And even highlighting it to the Department of Health, of course, who are responsible, have a big air quality responsibility, and similarly Department of Transport on air quality with DEFRA. And also she made the point about Dulac and housing, and just flagging to those, but I would urge her also to go and make the case to them. So she's on the right track, a good word to use on trails. Thank you again, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk about this subject. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member again and all of those involved who've done so much good work, and very much look forward to hearing how the trail progresses.
The question is that this House has considered funding for the Upper Don Trail. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. This sitting is now suspended until 2:30.